Hi everyone. So just a little bit about me and Prolifiko. So Prolifiko is a services, training and coaching business. We work with individual academics and authors and universities and publishers, and what we do is to help academics become more productive with their writing and with their publishing. And as Dee said, I presented this when we launched this at LBA early this year, in March this year. So thinking about the scope of the survey, so 20 questions in total on scholarly writing practice. So we asked questions around things like the kind of pressures that they felt with their writing and publishing, how satisfied they were with their writing, and the kind of typical blocks and barriers that people had with their writing process. Around 600 people took part, 43 countries represented, pretty wide age range in terms of the study. To the survey and the research is out. We'll send through a link if you need to. You can download it for free. As Dee said, we were ably helped by herself, and in terms of the development of the questions and some of the analysis, we worked with Professor Christine Tully, who's Director of Master of Arts in Rhetoric and Writing at the University of Findlay, Dr. Leffie Conrad, who is North American editor of the Journal of Learned Publishing, and she's also a publishing consultant. So, just to dive in, so one of the areas that we looked at was how satisfied academics felt with their writing and the level of pressure that they felt with their writing and publishing. And just to explain this graph, so early career to late career up here, low to high agreement. So at the beginning of a career, early career stage, 85% of early career researchers say they feel under pressure to write more than they currently do. And over the course of a career, this drops to 66%. Also, at an early stage, just 29% of ECRs are saying that they feel satisfied with their writing practice. So over the course of the career, this rises to 40%. So that would seem pretty simple, really. Over the course of a career, your level of satisfaction improves and the amount of pressure that you feel reduces. But actually, when we dug into the data in more detail, we found that the picture was a lot more complicated. It was a lot more messy. There was no linear connection, and there was no simple path. And what we found was there were these three turning points in an academic writing career. And at these three turning points, people seem to face the same kind of barriers and blocks of their writing. They seem to feel pressured in similar kind of ways, and they also seem to use similar techniques to keep their writing flowing. And these three turning points were 0 to 5 years, so early career researcher, 6 to 15 years, mid-career, and 16 plus years, late career, and arguably there was another one like 25 years plus after that. And we also found 5 findings about these life stages, and that's what I'm going to go through now. Number one finding is that academics prioritise writing some things over others at different stages of their careers. So it won't come as any massive surprise to you that we asked academics what they write, and typically they write things like articles for journals, book chapters, conference papers, grant funding reports, that kind of thing. But actually, what academics write over the course of a career changes. Again, no huge surprise, sorry, I should say early at the top left. Early career, academics are focused, of course, on their dissertations and on their theses. We saw that around year 4, people start to write more journal articles, but largely the focus is on dissertations and theses. Mid-career, dissertations and theses drop down. Now they're writing more things like articles, grant reports, conference papers. These are the kind of, I guess, bread and butter kind of content that is arguably linked to their career stage as well. We do see some people writing more books, long-form monographs and book chapters, but largely the main emphasis is on articles and grant reports. Things change, however, in late stage. Now, here, they're still writing journal articles, they're still writing conference reports, but the emphasis changes. Now, they seem to be writing far more books, monographs, anything long form, they seem to favour writing, and blogs and journalism. So here, what's interesting is that thought leadership is becoming a real focus for them, potentially because they want to thinking of leaving a legacy of some type. Creative writing is an interesting one. There are 2 points in an academic career where people start, where they write creatively. It's either at the beginning of a career or at the later stages. Again, they're still writing the journal articles and conference papers, but the emphasis isn't quite so much on them. Grant report writing goes down dramatically. Now, when we then compared against the types of writing that made them feel the most satisfied, all the items in green were all linked to high levels of satisfaction. The items that are the content in yellow were linked to neutral levels of satisfaction, and probably you guessed it, grant report writing was linked to very, very low levels of satisfaction. So it could indicate that academics, when they reach around year 16, they start to concentrate on writing stuff that they simply enjoy writing, or things that are going to, in one way or another, leave a legacy for them. Finding number 2, the pressure to publish is real, but it doesn't come from where you might think. So we asked academics, do you feel under pressure to write and publish more than you currently do? And 80% of people said yes, they feel under pressure to write more than they currently do. But then we asked, where does this pressure come from? Does it come from internal sources? So does it come from a personal wish to succeed in their career? Or does it come from external sources? Does it come from you guys? Does it come from publishers? Does it come from managers or people like that from the outside? 64% said that the pressure to write came from within, so it came from a personal drive and wish to succeed. 36% said it came from external pressure, so from deadlines and targets set by others. However, how the different types of pressure, again, were experienced differently across the course of the career. So this is number of years writing experience across the bottom there, yeah? So where we see internal pressure increasing and decreasing across the course of the career, we see external pressure decreasing and increasing. 2 other points of interest. At around year 10, an academic is experiencing the highest levels of internal pressure of their career. And when we cross-reference this with things like satisfaction and happiness, we found that they were also the most internal pressure was linked to high levels of dissatisfaction. However, at the later stages of the career, right there at 25 years plus, people were experiencing very high levels of the highest of their career, external pressure, which you would think would lead to dissatisfaction, but actually they are the happiest of their careers at that point. So even though they're under a lot of external pressure, they're really happy. So we don't know what's happening there. We'd like to find out. So that's something that for further analysis. Number 3, productivity blocks and barriers change dramatically over the course of a career. So again, we asked, what was it that you found, what was it that academics found hardest about the writing process? What were the kind of blocks, typical blocks and barriers that got in the way of publishing books and journal articles? As you can see, things like distractions and interruptions, teaching prep, students always feeling the need to do more. These are the kind of things that stop them. However, different types of blocks and barriers are more prevalent at different stages of a career. So, at an early stage, so again, 0 to 5 years, early career stage, we found that academics are experiencing 2 different types of blockers in general. These are what we call them psychological and technical. Technical blockers are things like not knowing where and how to publish, not knowing how to navigate the peer review system, those kind of things. Whereas psychological blockers, and these are things that actually were a lot more harmful for academics. These were kind of things like feeling overwhelmed, feeling out of control, and feeling really sort of negative emotions about their writing. But mid-career, things change again. Now, that's not to say that they're not experiencing these psychological pressures. Technical barriers, not so much. But now, they are they're barred and blocked from their writing through what we generally call kind of time management pressures. Things like family interruptions, workload pressures, student interruptions, those kind of things. And the sorts of quotes from I wouldn't say the quote from the last one, the quotes that we got were, the demands on my attention just swamped me. I get a huge volume of email, and then there's all these student inquiries. So at this point in their career, they're just blocked and barred predominantly because they're really busy. Later on in a career, again, the barriers seem to change and disappear in many ways, actually. Again, this could be to do with something like survival bias, but generally, we found that things like travel got in the way of their writing, and having to juggle personal responsibilities and the professional, probably just because they're flying around the world all the time, going and presenting at various different conferences. But there is still a real desire to write. So again, oddly, I'm not sure why I write. I'm tenured and I'm fully promoted, so it's not for that. I just enjoy it. I enjoy the craft of it. It's part of my job. I think the work is important. Number 4, how academics schedule their writing time changes as their roles and responsibilities change. This is a bit of a geek out one for us, really, because we love finding out about how people schedule the time to write. We asked these 4 questions of our academics. Do you write every day? Do you block out chunks of time across your week or your month? Do you tend to write on holiday or on sabbatical, or do you not consider yourself to have any particular method at all? By far, or nearly half of our people blocked out chunks of time, so they did what we call the time blocking method. So they wrote in chunks of time across the week or across the month. 30% said they write every day, with just 10% writing on sabbatical. But again, as you probably expect me to say, how the kind of methods that people use changes over the course of their career. Again, writing career over the bottom there. And as you can see, the daily and time blocking method is used quite in equal proportions up to about the year 5. But then something happens. Daily writing falls off a cliff, whereas time blocking goes sky high. And again, this is probably something to do with where somebody is in their career, where somebody is, they're maybe doing a postdoc about that time, or they might be taking on new roles and responsibilities at work. Now, again, there were some really interesting links between the type of scheduling method that somebody chose and how satisfied they were, how satisfied they reported they were, and actually how productive they were as well. So there's a real impact in terms of the method that somebody uses and how productive they are. So whereas daily writers were the most satisfied people, they were not the most productive, which actually for a lot of people, which actually flies in the face of a lot of the research out there, which says that the only method that academics should use to write is to write daily. Time blockers were not necessarily the most satisfied, but they were the most productive of our group. People that wrote on holiday or on sabbaticals were neither satisfied nor productive. So if there's one thing to take from that, is don't write on holiday. Number 5, age and experience don't necessarily make you better able to cope, but systems do. So what do I mean by a productivity system or a system? So a system is what we call the collection of behaviours and habits and routines and rewards and schedules that individual academics use to keep the writing flowing, to keep moving forward. And some of these systems that we found people tend to use were, some of them were really complicated, some of them were really, really simple. Sometimes academics knew that they had a system, other times they didn't really know at all. They just did one thing and they've always done one thing that's worked for them. Sometimes it changed over time. But what we do know is that it was a really important thing for academics to keep going. So we asked this question: would you consider that you had some kind of personal system to help you keep moving forward with your writing? And the people that tick yes, there are always certain things that I do. They were more productive. They were better at coping with pressure. they were more satisfied and they were less likely to experience writing blocks and barriers. The people that ticked perhaps, but it's a work in progress, or I've never really thought about it, experienced the greatest number of writing barriers. They were the most likely to say that they suffered from psychological blocks, and psychological blocks were also linked with very low levels of satisfaction, and they were also most likely to say that finishing was a problem too. They were least likely to say they were satisfied, and most likely to say they were dissatisfied. We also produced the least as well, in terms of the variety of different content that we wrote and the actual volume. I'm just going to read a quote that is now obscured by this, so I'll just have to read it from here. This quote came from our poll research, but I'm just going to read it because I think it's interesting. So, this is what somebody said to us. Writing can drop down your priority list. Weeks go by and you haven't touched your project. When you lose the rhythm, it's very, very, very difficult to get going again. And then you lose confidence, you lose your nerve, you just sit there and think, why can't I do this anymore? Why the hell would anyone want to read it anyway? Nothing I've got to say is important. This quote was from a Deputy Dean of Law at one of the most highly prestigious UK universities. They've been published over 200 times, 25 years plus experience, director of 2 research councils, and an advisor to the UK government. Point being that blocks and barriers to writing can appear at any point in your career, whether you're old, whether you're young, whether you're inexperienced or experienced. What we found was that the most important thing was to have some kind of system to help you keep going. So, these are questions to you. I don't have the answers to this, but these are questions to you. With this in mind, how might you work better with authors? So, thinking about our early career researchers, thinking about the kind of psychological blocks and barriers that they have to their writing, how could you help them overcome those kind of blocks? What could you do to help them overcome those kind of things? Thinking about our mid-career academics, these are the people who are really super busy, they don't have time to write. How could you structure how you incentivize your authors in a way that will actually help these people? And again, thinking about our later career authors, what incentives, thinking about how they enjoy writing long form, how they are looking to develop themselves as thought leaders in the field, is there anything that you could do besides giving them extra cash that is going to help them write more productively for you? And I'll leave that with you. Thank you.